Chapter 24. The Path of Blood. We formed an enormous circle of soldiers and horses in the open field. Shadow walked out into the middle of the circle, and Cameron followed, leading Jade. "Comrades, we have fought well together again," Cameron addressed our army. "Another victory for the crown of our father, King Lyon. We will go our separate ways again until the call comes. Follow the path you know is your own. Praise the one who lifts up the righteous into his eternal worship." A wormhole appeared in the middle of the circle as Cameron returned to his place beside me. Many of our soldiers went up into the funnel. Some of them broke off, following paths in other directions. Shadow walked around behind Spirit and slowly turned to me. She was standing on a red grass trail. "There is our path," I pointed, "the same one as in the desert and at the beginning." "Okay, let's go," Cameron agreed. Harold approached us, riding on the back of one of the captain's horses. "Shall he come with me or go with you?" the captain asked. Shadow perked up and nodded for Harold to stay with us. "He is wounded," the captain reported. "I don't know if he can ride, but he can have my horse." We had not even noticed that Harold was wounded. He had hidden it well, but now he fainted dead way. Another soldier caught him as he fell off the horse, and we laid him on the ground. "We will make a carrier and tie him to the back of Jade. I will pull him," Cameron said. The soldier nodded and started off on his own path. We set to gathering wood and rope to make a carrier for Harold, and then headed out with Shadow leading the way. We followed the red grass into a deserted plain that was even more desolate than our last desert. We saw no sign of life anywhere, not even desert plants, dunes, or sand, just a flat, dusty plain with a red strip for us to follow. "Stay on the blood path," Shadow said. Time without time passed on this path. We were once again thirsty and starving. I told myself I will starve to death before I call for that demon vulture again. "The Lord is my shepherd," I started, and the others joined. "I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Shadows of batting wings flapped around us, causing us to swerve and almost leave the path. As Spirit's hoof touched the edge of the path, I saw a clawed hand rise up out of the plain to grab her leg. The hand looked like the gray, dry dirt it came from. I pulled Spirit back onto the path just in time. We were too tired and thirsty for another battle so soon. "We cannot leave this red trail," I shouted ahead to Cameron. He nodded, trying to avoid the shadows. Suddenly, Harold's makeshift bed slid off the path and into the plain. The hands were around him before I could shout to Cameron. I sailed off Spirit in one jump and landed on the outskirts of the trail, slashing with my sword. There were no demons, just clawed dirt hands with very long arms. When I slashed the wrist, the dusty hands disappeared. But there were too many, and they were pulling Harold under. I couldn't hold them off. I stood up on top of Harold to make a last stand, cutting away at the hands with all my might as we were both being sucked down. I saw Cameron heading toward me, waving something above his head. Light trailed from his hands. The pins! I could read Psalm 23 in the ink light. I grabbed my pen from my cloak and started writing it out. "The Lord is my shepherd." Their hold loosened enough for Cameron to pull the bed back up and onto the trail. The hands shriveled up and sank back into the desert plain, but the shadowy wings were still trying to push us back out onto the waiting hands. Suddenly my sword grew so hot in my hand I couldn't hold it. Leaves grew on the handle at a rapid pace. I let go and it stayed suspended in the air. Cameron's sword grew hot as well, and he let it go when he saw mine floating. Both our swords hovered in the air as if waiting. "The word!" I yelled. "More of the word!" "Psalm 91, shouted Cameron above the beating dark images. We both began shouting and writing. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I will trust. Surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. He shall cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked, because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place. No evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. For He shall give His angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent. You shall trample underfoot. Because He has set His love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. The ink light surrounded the shadows, closing in on them until they disintegrated in a squeeze of Scripture. Our swords worked on the outskirts of the trail, eliminating the last of the shadowy wings. The Word will replace our weapons to win the battles ahead. We will need to have more of it in our hearts for the famine that is coming, Cameron said. Spirit licked my wounds, which I now saw were many. The dirt claws had cut my arms and legs. Spirit had some wounds as well. Like a shot, beams of light appeared in the sky where the shadows had been and struck down on the red path in front of us. Winsome angels slid down the beams with water, food, and ointment for our wounds. You called, and here we are, they sang merrily, for He shall give His angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. The water was sweet and pure, and the food was simple, dried meats and fruits, but had tantalizing flavors that filled our stomachs after only a few small bites. A few of the angels fluttered around Harold, who had been passed out through the entire ordeal. He is not well. Our ointment will bring him back, but it will take some time. Stay on the path, the blood path, but keep watch. You must get him to the waiting room. The enemy approaches. They gave us extra food, water, and ointment, and rode up out of sight on their beams. Then the beams receded up into the heavens. I quoted, "And He rained down manna upon them to eat, and gave them food from heaven. Man did eat the bread of angels. He sent them food in abundance." Cameron recited, "Bless the Lord, you His angels, mighty in strength, who perform His word, obeying the voice of His word. Bless the Lord, all you His hosts, you who serve Him, doing His will." "Let's go. Let's get Harold to the waiting room," he said. We started back out on the trail, which was getting wider and soggier. The red stains on Jade and Spirit were spreading up their legs. Our feet were splashed with red stains in our stirrups. Harold was nearly all red as he lay on his carrier, his head rolling from side to side. Cameron stopped Jade. "Shh, I hear something." He turned to me with his finger over his mouth. "The ocean!" I cried. The trail had grown very wide, and I guided Spirit ahead toward the sound of crashing waves. When we arrived, Spirit pulled up short, and Cameron reined Jade up beside me. Shadow smiled in my lap. We saw groups of young soldiers on the shore. Some were wounded, and others were helping them. Some of them rose as we entered the sight. An older soldier, who carried himself like a captain, approached us. "Hello, friends of the cross," he said with his hand over his heart. Cameron copied his gesture. "Greetings," he returned. "Greetings," I said. "What battle have you come from?" asked the captain. "The castle of the entrapment of the saints," Cameron said. "But we just had another skirmish not far from here," I spoke up. "Dusty claws lay in waiting off the trail, and dark shadows fell upon us." We told him of the angels, and gave him some food and water. He looked exhausted and hungry. The captain spoke again. "We have fought many battles, and were led to this place by a lion cub." He smiled as Shadow jumped into his arms from my lap. My mouth dropped open. "We are very hungry and thirsty. As you see, we cannot drink this water." He pointed to where the path of blood emptied out into the sea. It was solid red, a sea of blood.